Have you ever felt uncomfortable in the presence of someone for no apparent reason? Have you ever had the impression that a person reveled in your misfortunes or tried to control you obsessively? And have you ever felt an inexplicable sense of uneasiness when someone lies to you or manipulates you? These sensations could be alarm bells, clear signs that there is an evil person next to you. But how can we recognize these signs in the bud? How to protect ourselves from these toxic people who can undermine our inner peace and well-being? We will see it thanks to the Zen story you are about to hear, a story steeped in Buddhist wisdom. And if you stay to the end, you will find out how to defend yourself from these people and protect your soul from their negative influences. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be informed when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. The morning sun filtered through the leaves of the centuries-old trees that surrounded the ancient Zen monastery, projecting plays of light on the serene face of the elderly monk Doi. Sitting cross-legged on a meditation cushion, embroidered with the symbol of Enso, the circle of infinity, Doi watched his disciples gather in the garden. Their faces, young and old, were a mixture of curiosity and anticipation, eager to listen to the master's teachings. A light spring breeze carried the scent of cherry blossoms in bloom, creating an atmosphere of peace and serenity. Among the disciples sat a young woman named Sakura, her eyes filled with unshed tears. He had recently suffered a painful disappointment from a friend who turned out to be false and manipulative. Doi, sensing her pain, began to speak in his deep, reassuring voice. "My dear pilgrims," he said, "the spiritual path is a journey of inner discovery, a path of personal growth and spiritual rebirth. But it's also a journey fraught with challenges, and one of the biggest is recognizing and confronting the evil people you may encounter along the way." An attentive silence fell over the group as Doi continued. Evil comes in many forms, often masked by false smiles and sweet words. But there are signs like headlights in the night that can illuminate a person's true nature. Today, I will share with you 10 of these signs, 10 clues that will help you protect your inner peace and maintain emotional balance along your path. The first sign you need to watch out for, began the monk, is when someone takes pleasure in the pain of others. Evil people feed on the suffering of others, Doi explained. They rejoice in misfortunes, laugh at difficulties, and show no empathy. Doi looked at Sakura and continued, "I remember a young woman named Hana who worked in an office where a colleague, envious of her successes, spread malicious gossip about her. Hana was devastated, but her colleague seemed to take perverse pleasure in her suffering. One day, the woman confided in him about a personal problem, hoping for some comfort. Instead, the colleague laughed in her face and downplayed her pain. It was then that Hana understood the true nature of that man and decided to walk away from him, finally finding peace." The need for control is another signal not to be underestimated. Evil people crave power and seek to control every aspect of their lives and the lives of others. Doi continued, "An old friend of mine, a skilled craftsman named Taro, was married to a woman who controlled him obsessively. He decided what he should wear, who he could talk to, and even what he should think. Taro felt suffocated like a bird in a cage. One day, his wife forbade him to attend a party with his childhood friends. Taro, tired of being controlled, decided to rebel and go to the party anyway. It was a small step towards his liberation, and he finally found the courage to leave that toxic relationship and find himself. Feeling a strange sensation when we are in front of a person is another sign to pay attention to. Sometimes your intuition warns you of the presence of an evil person," Doi said. "You may feel a sense of unease, an inexplicable restlessness, or a negative energy that seems to emanate from that person. Listen to your instinct. It is the voice of your inner wisdom," Doi added. Then He looked at a young disciple named Kenji who nodded thoughtfully, recalling an encounter with a stranger who had made him feel uncomfortable for no apparent reason. "Master," Kenji asked, "how can I distinguish between a simple dislike and a real warning sign?" Doi smiled. "That's a wise question, Kenji. Sometimes our dislike of someone may simply be a matter of incompatibility of character. But when it comes to an evil person, the feeling is deeper, more visceral. It's as if your body and mind are sending you an alarm message. Learn to trust your instincts and don't ignore those signs." As the disciples listened with great interest, Doi went on to talk about the lack of responsibility. "Evil people never take responsibility for their actions," he explained. "They always blame others, manipulate situations, and pose as victims. I once knew a merchant who had a habit of blaming his employees for his mistakes. If a deal went bad, it was their fault. If a customer complained, it was their fault. This man never looked at himself in the mirror, unable to recognize his own flaws. So one day, one of his employees, tired of being blamed unfairly, quit. And the merchant, instead of reflecting on his behavior, accused the employee of being disloyal and ungrateful. The habit of lying is another sign to watch out for. Lying is the favorite weapon of evil people," Doi said. "They lie to get what they want, to manipulate others, and sometimes just for the fun of it." Once upon a time, there was a woman who had a natural talent for lying. Making up stories was his favorite pastime, and he didn't care who he hurt with his lies. One day, he made up a story about a friend of his, accusing him of stealing money. The story spread quickly, ruining his friend's reputation. The woman was very amused to see the chaos she had created, but ultimately her lies isolated her from everyone. "Evil people feel no remorse for their actions," Doi explained as he introduced the next signal. "They never regret the evil they have done and never apologize. Once upon a time, there was a samurai who killed many men in battle. This samurai felt no remorse. On the contrary, he boasted of his deeds, blinded by his thirst for power and glory. He couldn't see the pain he had caused the families of his victims, nor the suffering he had inflicted on himself, losing his humanity. Be careful of those who don't even hide their cruelty," Doi said of another important sign. "Some evil people don't hide behind false appearances," he said. "They are openly cruel, aggressive, and enjoy inflicting pain on others." Once upon a time, a warlord named Oda Nobunaga was known for his cruelty. He is said to have built a tower with the heads of his enemies, a monument to his bloodlust and lack of compassion. Nobunaga was feared by all, but his reign of terror ended when he was betrayed by one of his generals, who could no longer bear his cruelty. Warnings from friends and family, according to the monk's wisdom, are another sign to pay attention to. If people close to you warn you about someone, listen to them, Doi advised. They may have seen something that you didn't. Once, a young monk named Sato fell in love with a woman who everyone else in the monastery considered dangerous. Sato ignored the warnings, blinded by love, but eventually discovered that the woman was a spy sent to steal the monastery's secrets. Sato learned the hard way that sometimes love can make us blind, and that it is important to listen to the advice of those who love us. Contempt. Evil people use contempt as a weapon to undermine your self-esteem and make you feel inferior, Doi explained. They will criticize your appearance, your interests, your dreams, and everything that makes you unique. I remember a girl named Yumi who had a boyfriend who constantly belittled her. He told her she was too fat, too stupid, too boring. Yumi began to believe those words and lost confidence in herself, trapped in a spiral of doubts and insecurities. Only when she found the courage to leave that toxic relationship could Yumi begin to rebuild her self-esteem and rediscover her worth. Cruelty toward animals is another sign of a profound lack of empathy and is often a precursor to violent behavior toward humans, Doi said. A man named Takeshi was known for his cruelty to animals. He beat his dog, left his cat hungry, and enjoyed tormenting birds. Not surprisingly, Takeshi was also an abusive husband and cruel father, incapable of feeling love and compassion. One day, Takeshi's wife, exasperated by his violence, found the courage to report him to the authorities. Takeshi was arrested and his children were entrusted to a loving family where they could finally grow up in a safe and healthy environment. Doi stood up, his eyes shining with wisdom and compassion. "My dear disciples," he said, "wickedness has always existed in the world, but we must not allow ourselves to be overcome by fear. By learning to recognize the signs of an evil person, we can protect ourselves and those we love. Remember, your inner peace is a precious treasure. Protect it from negative influences and surround yourself with people who support you on your spiritual path." Personal growth and mental well-being also depend on the companies you choose. Be wise, be compassionate, and be strong. And remember, even in the deepest darkness, the light of your soul can never be extinguished. The disciples stood up, deeply touched by the master's words. Sakura, in particular, felt relieved and strengthened. He had finally understood that his suffering had not been caused by his weakness, but by the wickedness of his former friend. Now, armed with the knowledge of the 10 signs, she was ready to leave the past behind and look to the future with hope and confidence. As the sun set, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange, each of the disciples knew they had received a precious gift: knowledge of the 10 signs that indicate the presence of an evil person. With this knowledge, they were ready to face their spiritual journey with renewed awareness, inner strength, and the hope of a bright future. The next day, during morning meditation, Sakura approached Doi and asked, "Master, what should I do if I encounter a person who shows these signs?" Doi smiled and replied, "Sakura, the first thing to do is recognize the situation and accept it for what it is. Do not deny reality. Do not try to justify the evil person's behavior. Then you have to decide whether to walk away from that person or try to help them change. Sometimes the only solution is to distance yourself to protect yourself. Other times, if the person is willing to listen and change, you can try offering your help and compassion. But remember, it's not your duty to save everyone. Your priority is to protect your inner peace and well-being.